Hello, and welcome to Los Alamos National Laboratory's Math and Science Academy. This thread is the third of three involving the Common Core Standard for Grade 5, which discusses the division of unit fractions by whole numbers and division of whole numbers by unit fractions. In this third example, we're extending the idea a little more, and we'll talk about dividing a whole number by a non-unit fraction. The learning goals for this standard all involve translating word problems into associated mathematical tasks. Mathematically, what's involved in this standard is the understanding of dividing a unit fraction by a whole number and a whole number by a unit fraction. However, we've extended this a little bit further, so we've added this other learning goal to include dividing a whole number by a non-unit fraction, which is the point of this particular thread. In all of this standard, students need to be able to fluently use multiple strategies to understand fractions of whole numbers, and students always need to communicate mathematical thinking accurately and precisely. So here's our problem. We'll ask how many 3/4 cup servings are there in 5 cups of milk. Mathematically, what we're doing is dividing a whole number, 5 cups of milk, by 3/4 cup, a fraction. You'll notice in this case this is not a unit fraction. In previous examples, we've divided a unit fraction by a whole number and a whole number by unit fractions. And this time we're going to take a whole number and divide by a non-unit fraction and see what that brings up. We'll begin with an area model and represent 5 cups of milk as 5 green circles. These are the holes. 1 3/4 cup serving, therefore, is represented by 3/4 of one of the cups. So this is a 3/4 cup servings. And there are a couple of different interpretations of this area model. I'll begin with this one. If this represents 1 3/4 cup serving, then we can fit 4 more of those into these 5 cups without worrying about dividing among cups. This gives us 5 servings so far, but we'll also have the 5 remaining quarters from which we can pick 3 of those, and if we take 3 of those, that will generate 1 more serving for a total of 6 servings. Still, we have 2 more fourths that are remaining or left over, and these 2 fourths that are left over represent a half a cup remaining. So basically we have 6 servings and 1/2 cup left over. An alternative way to look at this is to think of the 5 cups of milk, and again 1 3/4 cup serving looks like this. And if we want another serving, we need 3 more quarters. And so we can look at these blue shaded regions as 1 more serving. So we've got 1 serving, 2 servings, and then 3 more quarters will give us a 3rd serving. 3/4 again is the 4th serving. 3/4 again is a 5th serving. We have 1 more time we can fit 3/4 in and get a 6th serving. So here are our 6 servings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll have these 2 quarters, or a half, remaining. And so once again, we get 6 servings with a half a cup left over. So here's the problem again. How many 3/4 cup servings are there in 5 cups of milk? This time we'll use a number line. We'll represent our 5 cups of milk as the segment 0 to 5 on a number line. Because the servings are in quarter cups, 3/4 cups, we'll break the number line into segments of 1/4 each. This way, a single serving of 3/4 cups is represented as 3 of these segments, and we have 1 serving represented here. The question is how many of these will fit in the full 5 cups. And so we just repeat the 3/4 cup serving as many times as we can. You'll notice that we have a little bit left over, and we'll get to that in a moment. But in the meantime, we can see that we have 6 servings, each of 3/4 cup in length or in size. And we'll have also 2/4 or 1/2 cup left over. So again, we come up with the same answer, this time a little more abstract than when we're using circles. And we see that there are 6 servings with a 1/2 cup left over. One of the things that's interesting and important to see here is that our answer here, 6.5 cups, it's not really 6.5 servings, it's 6 servings with a 1/2 cup left over. So we're kind of mixing units here. We have 6 servings and a 1/2 cup. It's important to point out that this is not 6.5 cups. Nor is it 6.5 servings. Another thing to notice is that our answer, 6 with this 1/2 cup, does not show up on the number line. We're not adding up things and ending up with our answer represented on the number line, but rather we're counting and adding up a count of things with a little bit of leftover. So these are both somewhat different uses of things than students may have seen in the past, and it's important to watch out for full understanding of what's happening here. So here's our problem again. How many 3/4 cup servings are there in 5 cups of milk? In this case, we'll use a procedure. Procedures are the ultimate goal of what we want students to be able to do because they're so efficient. However, they're also very abstract, and students need to understand the meaning behind them before they can use them effectively. So before introducing procedures, be sure that students understand the concepts through images and models, reinforce the relevant facts that are involved, and help them to articulate through precise and correct language exactly what the meaning is of what's going on. Only then do we move to procedures. Once we do, we look for the key idea in the problem. And in this case, the key idea is that we have 5 cups of milk and we need to divide it by 3/4. The language that points us to that is this question here: how many 3/4 cup servings are there in 5 cups of milk? This is how many times can we put 3/4 into 5, and so 5 is getting divided into these units of 3/4. Symbolically, we need 5 divided by 3/4. Another concept that students should know at some point, hopefully by now, is that division is multiplying by the reciprocal of the divisor. So when we divide by 3/4, we're multiplying by 4/3. If they don't understand this idea, there is another thread that helps go into it more deeply, and it's important that they understand this concept before they move on with this particular procedure. So again, 5 divided by 3/4 is the equivalent of 5 times 4/3. And to do this multiplication procedurally, the 5 is really 5 over 1, and 4/3, the multiplication, we multiply numerators and denominators, and we get 20/3. This is a perfectly good answer, but most students and most teachers at this level are not happy with that because of its abstraction, and it's nicer to put the answer in mixed number form. And so we won't go into that a lot here, other than to say that when we take 20/3 of something, 3 will go into 26 times, and so that will give us 6 full servings, and we'll have 2/3 left over, and so we'll have 6 2/3 servings. You'll notice that the answer in this case, when we do it procedurally, doesn't bring up the units problem that we had in the previous version of things, where we ended up with 6 servings plus 1/2 cup of milk left. In this, when we do things procedurally, it generally will be consistent, and we'll have 6 2/3 servings. So This is 2/3 of a serving, which happens to be half a cup, which was the remainder when we did things visually. So here's our answer, 6 servings with 2/3 servings remaining. So here's an example of what a teacher did with this. You'll see that they used something similar to the second interpretation of our area model. They represented each of the 5 cups of milk as vertical bars and then broke it into 3/4 cup segments. So here's the first 3/4 cup, second 3/4 cups. Here's another 3/4 of a cup, right, those 3. Here's another 3/4 cup. Here's another 3/4 cup, and a fifth 3/4 cup serving is made up by those 3 sections. And what's left over are 2 sections, 2 quarters of a cup. But here you can see the thinking. The unit is 3/4. The unit is a serving, and a serving is 3 cups. So because the unit is 3/4, what this 2 represents is 2 of 3 parts, 2 of the 3 parts of the unit. And so they've converted this idea of 6 servings plus a half cup up here to 6 full servings and 2/3 of another serving left. This slide shows some mathematical writing that we might expect from a student. Starting with 5 whole cups represented, each cup represented by these bars across this way. Each one has 1 3/4 cup serving, so the red represents a 3/4 cup serving, and there are 5 more quarter cups represented here. Use 3 of those to make 1 more serving, so those are our 6 servings, and plus some left over. The student hasn't been very specific here, and it partly depends on the question and the interpretation of the question, how many, whether or not it's important to accurately represent the remainder. A student might just say, well, there are 6, and that's how many servings there are, because there are no more servings. There's not enough milk left over to make a serving. And that's an okay round to an integer kind of way of looking at the problem. Or if, as you've seen in the previous slides, we can be more specific about having a half cup or 2/3 of a serving left over. What's important and what we like here is that the student has really explained their thinking. Each cup has 1 3/4 cup serving, so the concept is real clear, and that there are some more which add up to another serving and some leftover. So the language that the student is using here is articulate, it's clear what they're doing, and there's not a right way to do this problem, but there's a very good explanation of what the student has done, and that's what we're looking for in language.